This is the CineSnob Podcast.
Everyone, welcome to episode 269 of the CineSnob Podcast. I'm Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafana.
Yeah, nice, right, Cody?
Nice.
269. We're in the midst of summer movie season here, Cody.
Yeah.
We talked about Spider-Man last week. This week we're talking about Transformers. Next week is going to be probably one of the most anticipated, talked about movies of the summer, and that is The Flash. Mm-hmm. Which usually by this time, before the release, you and I have either seen it or have something lined up to see it at a press screening. Mm-hmm. This movie has been extremely unique in that regard. The idea that it's being hidden isn't the right word, because it's not being hidden.
Protected?
But protected is. So, again, I have no press screening of The Flash here in Austin, which I typically get. If nobody's getting, if it's not happening in Austin, it's not happening anywhere. But I didn't get an invitation to a press screening. Mm-hmm. I know y'all have some issues down there with Warner Brothers not screening things.
Yeah.
That's been a long running issue. However, there were screenings here that I found out about like secondhand that I had to email our rep directly about. I guess this all boils down to the idea that this movie is being held back to a degree I've never seen before, to keep spoilers out of the conversation, which I know some have gotten out there, and I know I have purposely avoided them. I think I've figured them out. But our former co-host here and CineSnob colleague Kiko saw the movie in San Antonio at an event with Sasha Calle, mm-hmm. Who plays Supergirl in the movie. But he told me the movie had no credits. Yeah, it just ended. Which that's a rumor that I've seen, not a rumor, but that's other things that I'd seen about press screenings that had happened before last weekend or before last week, that the movie just ended and there's no there's no credits that roll. There's no post-credit scenes. And the rumor was that certain being blurred out when it was shown on the Warner Brothers lot. Mm-hmm. I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah,
in
they
the
also
past.
said that they canceled a bunch of like worldwide premieres and were only just holding one instead of doing it in like, London or, like
they do
New
it
York and
everywhere.
LA premiere or whatever.
So the big thing that is out there is that this is sort of a reset of the DC cinematic or DC extended universe, whatever they're going to call it now. Mm-hmm. That this sort of erases everything that came before and starts a new continuity. There are plenty of rumors about what happens. I have my own ideas. I think you and I have talked about these things before. At what point would you as a critic be sort of, would that offend you if you watched this movie and it didn't end properly?
Yeah, it absolutely would. I mean, I think, part of the problem is that, this stuff, be it Marvel or DC or really anything, has now conditioned us to feel like these credits sequences are essential. We've seen it even where there's like a false ending to a movie and then like the end credits or whatever is an epilogue that actually is the actual end of the movie. There was one movie recently that did that, that I can't quite remember. I don't remember what it was, but but it was.
You mean like it was like the ending, the mid credits thing was essential to the plot? You mean?
Yeah, or like wrapped up the movie in a way that was.
And Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 sort of did that, if I remember correctly. Like there was a kind of a coda with Roth's character.
Yeah.
Then there was an end credit scene that was just more of a little fun thing, but I can't remember directly.
Yeah, but I mean, look, the thing is, if it's essential or integral to the plot, or even just nothing, that's like throwaway shit, like,
like 90% of the Marvel stuff is, yeah.
if now in order to see what that is, we have to go back and sit through the entire movie again just to see the ending of it. And I mean, I guess it depends on to what degree they're doing this, right? Are they just leaving out the post credits, or like, can you imagine being at a screening and having the climax of the movie like blurred out as they sort of alluded to? Because I don't even think that like it was a credits scene that they hinted was blurred. It sounded like a lot of the climax of the movie, was blurred.
And so there's a in an interview with Collider, the Andy Muschietti, who directed, teased that there's a scene at the end and post credits that have not been this was as of last week, had not been in any screenings,
right? So
which I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you read into that, it sounds like the end of the movie before a post credit scene has not been screened for anyone, which again, like, the annoying part about this is that I don't understand why they're being so precious about it, because this is something that every single movie that ever screens for critics has to endure, and everyone has endured it. I have seen in the past, maybe like not having a full end credit scene before the movie is released or whatever, but I've never seen like part of the movie be withheld as part of the screenings. The other thing too is like, again, there's middle ground here, but like the thing is they want their cake and they want to eat it too, right? Because the reason why they're not screening it for critics, and I guess this is a little inside baseball, but like they're screening it for influencers right now, especially in San Antonio. The one that Kiko went to was an influencer screening. I'm sure that those are the Austin ones too, and so they want to like promote the movie and get positive buzz out of it, but yet they don't want to give it all to critics, which again, there's no middle ground. Like, either screen it all for critics and then have us abide by our embargoes, or sign an NDA or whatever you want to do for that. It's easy enough to do. Or
we've done it.
Yeah, we've done it.
We've signed NDAs. Yeah.
Yeah, we sign NDAs for Disney screeners.
For Mystery Science Theater 3000, we did too.
Yeah, and it's no problem. So either do that or keep influencers out of it, or just do it for there's got to be some middle ground in order to prevent this from happening, which is the idea that critics aren't able to see a complete movie, and in order to see the complete movie, they would have to go there's no easy way to do it. It's not like they can just send you the end credits. You would have to go to the theater and either pop into a movie that's about to end or buy a ticket and watch the whole thing all the way through just to see the last couple of minutes, which I think is absurd. To be fair to the people that give us the access to these screenings, I once I found out about the screening, I was invited to go, but there was other things already lined up. And I don't want it to sound like, oh, we didn't get to see the movie for free. Wah, wah, wah. Like, I don't care. I pay for half the stuff I see here. Sure. Yeah.
Anyway, it's the idea that you're getting an experience that is purposefully held back, that is kind of the offensive part. And I've seen work prints before, and they've told you flat out this is a work print. I think the campaign was kind of one of the most, one of the things that changed the most when I saw it. I think that was only like a month before its release. The South by Southwest stuff, half the time it says work in progress if it's months in advance. And I understand that. But when this is a movie that is, for all intents and purposes, done, and I guess premiered, there have been screenings for the last 2 months. And that they're purposefully holding this back, not because it's not finished, just because they don't want it to get out there, and they're not screening everything for everyone. Then I don't get it. I mean, as soon as I'm purposefully not reading anything about the movie because I know there are spoilers out there, and I know some of the things were leaked already. It's fine, whatever. It's a grown up thing, and it's not. It's not going to ruin the movie to know something about it. But I can avoid talking about it. If we talk about it on the show, we're always talking about it after the or at least right as it's hitting for the general public. So we're not spoiling anything. It's a weird way to treat it. This movie, and understandably on Warner Brothers' part, they're not putting Ezra Miller out there to talk, as they've had, very many reported issues with the law and apparently mental illness and whatever the circumstances are. That's totally understandable. To not have the full thing screened for critics is a weird move. Mm-hmm. Just because it's, that's who talks about these things. Like,
right.
Whatever influencers, I don't understand who the crowd is. I don't understand who they are in relation to a film critic. I don't know why the Venn diagram is two separate things, but whatever. The case that you would have to, that you're holding these things back on purpose is kind of a little bit of a slap in the face after everything that we've been through for everything else.
Yeah.
There's plenty of, the embargoes are there so that if you break the embargo, you're not going to get invited back to the next one. Mm-hmm. They ask you nicely to not spoil anything. Why you would go out there and blurt it out on the internet if you're trying to maintain an audience? Because I don't know how many people listen to the show before they see the movie. I know people do. I don't know how many people listen to the show after they see the movie. I don't particularly like to listen myself when I'm consuming things like this. I don't like to hear about something I haven't seen yet. Mm-hmm. But that's me. And
which is, of course, why we wait till Sundays. Everyone knows that.
Look, we're giving you time to have gone to see it.
Yeah.
But, it is what it is in that this stuff is out there already. Mm-hmm. When as soon as somebody sees it, Thursday night, the first public screenings of it, then it's done. Then it's out there. I don't know what waiting a week, what putting it out there a week before is going to change about anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, but I'm seeing it this Friday, so
yeah, I'll probably go Thursday night to make sure that I can be on social media for Friday and not have everything.
We had scheduled for Thursday.
Yeah,
we had it scheduled for Thursday night, but I had to push it to Friday because getting to see Indiana Jones 2 weeks early. They don't give a shit about Indiana Jones spoilers getting out there, I guess.
Yeah.
But The Flash.
It is going to be interesting. It's always interesting with these high profile things to actually see what all the hubbub is about with this stuff. And I just know what's going to happen is that something's going to happen in The Flash in those end credits, and we're going to be like, that's it. That's what we were being kept from. I almost know it's going to be just something either inconsequential or
no.
whatever.
It's going to be. And I don't know this. I suspect this. I don't know this. And it's the same as the Transformers movie we're going to talk about. It's going to be something completely fan servicey. Mm-hmm. Like it's not going to be this. It's not going to be your typical Marvel thing where it's just sort of a place setter for something else. It's going to be it's going to be something equivalent to Samuel L. Jackson showing up in Iron Man. Like it's going to be that fan servicey. Like there may be no template for it at all. Like whatever's coming next, it's just going to be this big pop of fan servicey shit. And I have a suspicion as to what it is, but I'm not going to say it.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later. But I feel like it's going to be something that, you're going to leave the theater and like, well, how are they going to do this? But it's going to get a huge pop, and it's probably going to be catering to older people. Like the people that are there to see Keaton as Batman, it's probably going to really hit the hardest with those people. This is just my educated guess. Mm-hmm. So, you'll probably hate it, in other words. Yeah. Anyway. But yeah, so we'll talk next week. We'll see what The Flash is all about. But until then, we are as in the dark as you are.
Yes.
Fellow listeners. Anything else before we move on, Cody?
No, I think that covers it.
All right, let's get started on reviews.
Here are this week's reviews.
Next up, we have Transformers: Rise of the Beasts.
Who are you? Why are you hunting for the key?
Yo, Donkey Kong, stay away from my friend. Mirage, don't worry, your boy's got this. Stranger danger! Stranger danger! Hey, 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 hey! Not so fast!
Hey, over here, kitty kitty.
a second time.
This is the overall 7th live-action Transformers movie, but really kind of the, I guess, a sequel to Bumblebee, which was a soft reboot of the series. This one is set in 1994 and, of course, features the Beasts, as you see in there, from Beast Wars. Cody, I don't know if were you ever into Beast Wars? That seems like it would have been your age.
I remember it vaguely from my childhood, yes.
Okay.
Wasn't there like a... never mind.
There was a cartoon, like a CG, like a very crudely animated CG cartoon.
Was there something like a saber-tooth character?
There's Cheetor, who you see in the clip there, who tackles Mirage. He was a cheetah.
For some reason, I remember having some sort of blue saber-tooth toy when I was a kid. I don't know.
Oh, I mean, yeah, later on in the series, there was plenty of variation, but like the cartoon is what I'm kind of meant.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, Cody, tell us about Transformers Rise of the Beast and what you thought of it.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm gonna leave the you're much more of a Transformers historian and fan
I know the
than
lore.
Yeah, so mine is just going to be kind of reviewing it from the perspective of someone whose connection to Transformers is mostly the Michael Bay movies, and as such don't really hold the property in that high of esteem. But yeah, so this, like you said, it is more of a sequel to Bumblebee, and also this, I believe, is technically predates and is a prequel to the Bay Transformers franchise, right?
So they're not ever counting those movies out, essentially. Right.
But chronologically, this happens before.
Chronologically, this is 1994.
Right.
Bumblebee was 1987.
Yeah, and then I assume the Bay series takes place in like present day when it came out.
Well, yeah, the first one was 2007, so this would be 13 years before that.
Right. So we have the introduction here of the Maximals. Is that right?
That is correct.
The Transformers, and it's called Rise of the Beast, but really not really. The Beasts are kind of in it a little bit, but I wouldn't necessarily call this the Rise of the Beast based on the story. But you have the setup is there's this character played by Anthony Ramos, who is essentially like an ex-military person who is kind of struggling to support his family. He has a little brother that has some kind of illness, which I'll kind of
believe he has sickle cell.
That's right, yeah. And then you have the other main human character is played by Dominique Fishback. She's sort of like an intern in like archaeology, I guess, and basically Anthony Ramos's character has to steal a car in order to make ends meet, and the car ends up being a Transformer, a new addition to the Transformers as far as I know, called Mirage, who is voiced by Pete Davidson.
New addition to the live action, yes, but the character's been around.
Yeah. And so anyways, Anthony Ramos gets caught up in what's going on, which is essentially, and I'm going to get this wrong. There's some sort of key
I'll walk you through it.
on Earth that if found by Unicron can enable him to destroy everything, destroy the world. It's
the transwarp key. It allows the characters to travel like across the galaxy through like quickly, essentially.
Right. And so the Autobots need it to go back to their planet, and if Unicron gets it, he has the power to
You never talked about who Unicron is. He's a giant planet that eats planets.
Right.
So,
yes.
Look, Cody, if you're going no, go ahead.
Anyway, so basically it's not all that different from any other, sort of like origin Transformers movie, which is like a guy who finds himself in the midst of some kind of like robot war and unwittingly in the middle of a robot war. I will say, part of the knock I think about a lot of the Transformers movies prior to this is that the Transformers are just sort of like blank slates, or racist in terms of their characterization.
In the past, yes, I think that's gone, thankfully.
Well, so even like Bumblebee like only speaks through like movie quotes or whatever. Like, there's not a lot of personality here, and so
sure,
it's a good news bad news situation here, which is that for the first time in a while, you have a character. You have a character in Mirage who has a personality. The bad news is that personality is Pete Davidson, and for me, it's a very much like a wise-cracking sort of like I don't know what you would call it. I have the Wikipedia page open, and Davidson described it himself as Jim Carrey's The Mask meets Bugs Bunny, which okay. But I just found this characterization really annoying. It sounds like maybe Pete Davidson was doing like a little bit of riffing throughout the course of this, but like to me it gets very grating, and I think it's I just didn't find much enjoyment in his characterization. I think that the story itself, at least the human part of the story, I was never really attached to. I think that a lot of like the, if you look at the like A to B to C of the storyline, it essentially boils down to like Anthony Ramos, his character being like, I need to protect my family, and my family lives on Earth, therefore I must save the Earth. Like, is basically like this the story that he goes through, and like his justification. Because in 1 second, he's suddenly like, "Yeah, I'm going to go fight with the Transformers to save the Earth," and the stakes of it all just feel so giant, and it really kind of takes away from what ultimately starts off as a small scale story, which is like he needs to make money in order to like get out of debt so that his brother can get hospital care, which, by the way, is a storyline that is prominent in the first like 10 minutes and then not brought up ever again until seemingly tied together to set up the next movie, which is basically the only time it ever really comes back in any significant way. So, I think the story itself is lazy in that sense. The Beast Wars side of things, again, largely absent throughout most of the movie. It really is kind of like Transformers take the center stage until kind of like the final and third act of the movie, which suffers again from the climax of every Transformers movie, which is just big, loud, noisy CGI robots crashing into each other. And for me, I just, it's sort of like eyes glazing over for me. So, is it competently made? Sure. Like it's not done in that sort of like overly stylized, slick Michael Bay filmmaking style. It actually like, in a Michael Bay movie, and especially in these Transformers movies, you have like, cameras that never stop moving and quick edits and circular shots and Dutch angles and camera angles between women's legs.
Racism, just gross sexism, just incredibly non-funny shit.
Yeah.
That is played out like a bastard.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And that stuff is not present in here. I mean, it is sort of like, again, like restrained as I guess a Transformers movie can be. That being said, like, I personally think the only reason that this thing is getting any kind of positivity is because the bar is so low for these other Transformers movies, which is to say that, like, hearing people say, oh, well, it's the third best behind the main Transformers and the Bumblebee movie. Yeah, no shit, because the rest of the movies are garbage. And this movie is also not good at all. Nothing about it worked for me. Like I said, the CGI climax of the movie just, is the same old Transformer stuff. The characterization stuff never hits home for me, especially because they expand the stakes too much. The actual stakes that they do put on it is sort of left in the background for 90% of the movie, I don't think you'd get nearly enough information about Anthony Ramos as a character. You figure out he's ex-military, but you don't know anything about what really happened for him or like what his background is. With Dominique Fishback, you know, I don't think you get any background as to like what, like why she's into what she's doing, or like how she knows so much about this stuff, or you know what is driving and motivating her. And then you know the rest of it, which is sort of the kind of like Transformers versus Unicron story, just like a big like I don't care about any of that stuff. So for me, I don't think that this works at all. I think that it is not as bad as the lowest of the low for the Transformers movie, but it is bad.
Yeah, you know, it does pain me to say that it was way more disappointing than I was hoping for. I don't know that I think it's a bad movie based on the criteria of what we've had with the Transformers in the past. And I know that's damning it with faint praise. I get it. I know. But I don't know if you really kind of, I mean, do you remember how bad some of these were in this day and age of IP being treated with like dignity and respect for the source material? Like you look at go look at you know, the fucking Iron Man movie or the first Captain America. Like 20 years ago, you wouldn't have gotten Captain America wearing a red, white, and blue outfit. He would have been in black leather, X-Men style, whatever. Mm-hmm. Now it's even 10 years ago, whenever the first one came out, 11, 12 years ago now, you have full on, this is Captain America, right? Like this is exactly what you wanted. You came for Captain America. Here's Captain America. With these Transformers movies, you got Optimus Prime, and that was basically it. Everything else was rewritten to be either the stupidest garbage you've ever seen, or, and I can't stress this enough, some of the most racist shit I've seen in a mainstream movie since the 80s. I can't believe some of the shit that this got away with in a movie based on fucking toys. You know, the course was corrected with Bumblebee, I think, even though the Bumblebee character is kind of a cipher. I don't know where they decided that all of a sudden Bumblebee was going to be this mute character who only talked through clips, because that's not in any of the lore. That's not like from the character's original perspective. So you have, like, while Bumblebee is a really good movie, I think, for this kind of, you know, as far as this genre is concerned, it lacks a character in the Transformer. Like the Bumblebee is just a blank slate, essentially. Mm-hmm. This, I think, is, you can be upset and irritated with Pete Davidson all you want, but at least it gives some sort of characterization to a Transformer for the first time fucking ever in one of these movies. Even Optimus Prime, who I don't think they treat very well as a character in this movie, has way more of an arc. And I say arc. This is as tiny of an arc as you can possibly imagine. This is basically like a pencil that the ruler's a little bit not straight for his arc. There's something to him. Like there's an element of like at least developing a character, not just making him this homicidal maniac who rips other characters' heads off and shit. That said, though, the movie doesn't really ever deliver on that in any substantial way. And it feels like it's kind of half-formed ideas. And then when you get to the climax, the Unicron stuff, look, Unicron was the villain in the original Transformers animated movie, meant to be like this existential threat that comes along in the middle of this war between, you know, the Autobots and Decepticons. This movie just sort of dumps it out there like it's the next thing to do. And it's this universe-ending threat. And there's like 6 characters fighting it. Mm-hmm. Like it's way too big for this movie. The scope is way too out there. And this is another one of those things that just dooms it as far as I'm concerned. Like, how many times have we asked for small scale stuff like this, or small scale stuff, and we get shit like this? Like, everything doesn't have to be about the end of the fucking world, the end of the universe.
Well, especially when you have like humans fighting as part of this, like, you know, intergalactic war or whatever the fuck, right? So like, give it some human stakes
Right.
And not have it just be suddenly like, oh, now this one character who's fighting with them is fighting to save the universe, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
go get everyone else too. Like,
Yeah.
go ask the military. Like, you can show them, like, hey, you know what? Like, this planet's going to start coming through this portal. Like, we're going to need some fucking help, guys.
Which again, in the last scene, like it
Yes,
sort of
yes.
like indicates that it's there all along. Like support was there should it
Right.
be needed. Like
Right.
like certain people were watching the entire time.
And I'm not going to spoil what that setup is.
Yeah.
But I told you this, and I've told other people this. This is something that should have happened a decade ago in these Transformers movies, for the sake of expanding this storytelling device and like making sense of it all. But whatever. I mean, this is kind of look. Bumblebee, I really liked. I liked the first Transformers movie, 2007. I know it's bad. Everything else is unwatchable garbage. I mean, almost to the point of being like, I don't understand how there's $300 million up on the screen in this crap. This one is kind of the definition of a placeholder, I think. Like it rehashes things that we've already seen before. Like, this guy becomes part of a mission of Transformers. Like, he comes across a car and turns out it's a Transformer, and he gets caught up in the war. Seen it several times. There's potential there to make this something more, and the movie just doesn't give a shit enough about that. And I feel like it's just a stepping stone to something else. Especially with Unicron, the Unicron thing being part of this, and then that in credits teaser thing. Like, this is a stepping stone to a bigger story. Am I confident that this thing can be told well? I don't know, man. I don't know if Bumblebee was a fucking fluke or what, but that was a well done story. I don't think it was a particularly solid Transformers movie. And I think this was a stab at getting that right. Look, at least you can tell what's going on. At least it's not, I mean, it's weird to say, at least it's not horribly, horribly racist and sexist. At least it's not offensive to the people that grew up with this fandom, like myself. Like, Marvel was getting all the love. Like, everything, like, you would see shit that you would never see before. You'd never dreamed as a dork in middle school. I never would have dreamed we would have seen fucking Moon Knight, brought to life in live action. That Jazz in the first Transformers movie was a racist caricature who died unceremoniously after being such an integral part of the animated series. It's just, I can't fucking believe the disrespect the property has been treated with. And look, I know it's not fucking high art. It's fucking selling toys, but Jesus fucking Christ, man. Like, it never has to be that bad. And this one isn't that bad. It isn't good, though. Anyway, what's your grade for Rise of the Beast, Cody?
Yeah, so I'm giving Rise of the Beast C-. I think it sucks. And I think that, like, again, now would that score be like the third highest of the series? Probably. Like, I mean, if we're being honest, probably. I mean, I think Bumblebee is a good movie. I think it is the only good movie of the franchise. I think that that just, again, like, there's just nothing to the narrative here, and I think that when you reduce and take out the narrative, it's just a bunch of again, loud, monstrous CGI nonsense. It's just like a little bit more like like measured than what we're getting with the base stuff, but it's still nonsense to me.
See, I disagree that it's nonsense. I just think that it's not well done. Like, it's not like you're seeing a bunch of shit that doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. You're just seeing a bunch of shit that doesn't really work as a story. Yeah. Personally. So, I mean, for that, my grade is a C+. I mean, I can't in good conscience say that this is a must-see movie. I mean, if you're a Transformers fan, is it this? I think it's the second best of these movies. It's the one that's going to offend you second. It's not the one that's going to. What am I trying to say? It's the one that's going to offend you, not the least, but the second least.
There you go.
If that makes sense. You're not going to be like, what the fuck were they doing? Like, why is it racist? I mean, it blows my mind how racist the Michael Bay movies were. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you saw that same thing that I did, but Jesus fucking Christ, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to our next movie, Flamin' Hot.
That's me, the Mero Mero, Mr. Richard Montañez. I'm the guy who helped bring the world the most popular snack it's ever seen.
Are you ready? A huevo.
I've been ready. All right. It was a little bit more like this. Spicy? Yeah, see, that's how I got here.
Dear God, please forgive me for the gang.
The drugs, the stolen cars.
What the heck, man? Let's move it.
Hey, he is praying, pendejo. Go ahead, baby.
The guy started at the very bottom.
I know I don't look it, but I got a PhD. I'm poor, hungry, and determined, sir.
Okay, I can see you're gonna be a weird one.
What's happening?
Layoff, son. Lots of them.
Frito-Lay isn't getting enough orders to keep the factory open.
Who eats Cool Ranch anyway? That lady.
Ow, wow, 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 wow.
What is it?
It burns.
Well, stop eating it.
No, I like it. It works good.
I had been searching for an answer. And there it was. They had been there the entire time.
So this is the allegedly true story of the creation of Flamin' Hot Cheetos, the Frito-Lay product, which I am not as familiar. I don't remember them being around for as long as they have been, Cody. I know they've been gotten kind of super popular in the last 10 years or so.
Yeah.
I am not a spice guy, so I've never eaten them.
Shocker.
Hey, I'll eat the fucking shit out of some regular nacho cheese Doritos or Cool Ranch. Yes, Cool Ranch. But nacho cheese is my favorite. Anyway, Cody, tell us about Flamin' Hot, which you saw at South by Southwest.
Yeah.
I watched on Hulu about an hour and a half ago.
Yeah, so it's not the most fresh thing in the world for me. I saw it 3 months ago, so I'm gonna let you talk about it a little bit more. I was at the premiere screening. So at South by Southwest, Flamin' Hot won the audience award. It was a raucous screening that I went to that had multiple applause breaks and people hooting and hollering and stuff like that.
As you do see at South by Southwest, to be fair.
Yes, that is true.
Kind of the par for the course. Same thing happened with Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. I mean, the crowd was sort of like super in it, and I do think that is indicative of sort of like this sort of crowd pleasing element of the movie, which again, tells this story about. I mean, it's a rags to riches story kind of idea about a guy who through some troubles in his younger adult days, works his way to a job as like a janitor at a Frito-Lay factory. And as you see from the clip there, gets inspired to essentially hit an untapped market, which is Hispanic people, and doesn't see Hispanic people represented in the snack food aisle, and so develops this seasoning that caters to not only Hispanic people, but has the crossover potential to be what has, like you said, in the last decade become like the chip, the snack,
right?
And especially us being here in Texas, like immensely popular as a snack here,
right?
And so with the story, you get things that I think are the narrative that it's told through is almost like. It's got a narration that's done by the main character throughout, and for me personally, I did not love that narrative structure of the narration because I think the narration is sort of like sort of invites a lot of what I feel are the cornier elements of the movie, which are just like, I mean, look, I'll be perfectly honest. I think this movie is very pandering to a specific crowd and audience in order to get that sort of crowd response from it. I think it's likable, and I think that it is successful in its crowd-pleasing ambitions, but I do think that it is pandering, and I think that a lot of the jokes are like very low-hanging fruit, even though it is... it is like, Hispanic jokes made by Hispanic people. I still think that it is very low hanging fruit type stuff. A lot of stuff like at the expense of white people and, a lot of, a lot of like, again, like personalities shining through that narration. And then I think, when it gets down to like the sort of like ambitious part of the story, which is like, the idea that, it is someone climbing the corporate ranks by kind of just like, being bold and putting himself out there and doing some risky stuff in order to try to make an impression, mostly through the sort of, the actor, Jesse Garcia, and then you have like the sort of executive played by Tony Shalhoub. I think that, I appreciate I think those are the strongest of the interactions within the movie, separate from, Jesse Garcia and Annie Gonzalez, who plays his wife. You get a like a mentorship relationship with Dennis Haysbert that I think works decently well. But the thing about it is that I think it's just like kind of aggressively fine. And I think that, the other like elephant in the room here is that this story is in dispute, and it is in dispute by Frito-Lay, the company who, sort of like makes the snack, says that this story is not true. And or at least the element of it, like this guy really was a janitor and really is an executive, or was an executive at Frito-Lay. Right. Like that happened. The idea that he invented the seasoning is something that Frito-Lay denies, and it is never addressed in the film, and it's difficult to like does that factor into how you view the film is like the big question, right? Because if you're looking at just what you have on the screen as a tale of like, a minority success story, it's effective. I mean, I think it works as such. However, there's this big looming thing that like the story may not even be true, and it is presented as such. So,
the movie does soft pedal that very, very slightly. I don't know if you remember a certain element that they brought up
about someone else, or about them testing it in a different market.
Right. And the idea that there's one line in the movie, because the seasoning he develops, right, is like him and his wife kind of cook it up in the kitchen. And then the one that makes it to market is from McCormick, the seasoning company. And there's a line where he says like, it's not Judy's, but it's still good, or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it does very, very slightly acknowledge it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think if you're able to, and I think, again, if you're just rating what is on screen, does it succeed at what it's trying to do mildly? But like I said, it's very crowd pleasing. It's a lot of low hanging fruit. It's kind of like, it doesn't do anything exciting with its story. I just think it's fine.
Yeah. It's in the same vein as not quite exactly the same style, but the recent stuff we've just watched, like Air and Blackberry, where it's kind of these corporate, these huge corporations like succeeding. This one has a little bit more of a let's put on a show vibe, especially at the climax. But I do think it's it is catering to a very, very specific audience, and that's clearly Hispanics, and that's 100% fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong. That it's in dispute, maybe that takes a little of the luster off of it for me. The idea that this is kind of a fabrication of sorts. The movie again addresses that in making the character an unreliable narrator within the film. But again, those are like, some of that unreliability is really low hanging fruit. Like there's a scene where he imagines like beating up a guy who slights him on the factory floor. And then it immediately pulls that back and says like, oh no, I can't get gangster on my first day, or whatever the fuck he says. I do feel like that cheapens the story a little bit. It's not, I mean, the inspiring story is that this guy is, he started as a janitor and rose in the ranks to like a marketing executive for Frito-Lay. Like that you have to paint him as the inventor of Flamin Hot Cheetos to do that when it's not something that the company acknowledges? Because look, there's nothing a company loves more than a good fucking lore like this.
Right.
Like this would be something that they would be all up in if it were true.
Absolutely.
And that they're publicly disputing it is a bit like, oh shit, man, maybe this thing is really just a nothing burger. Like it's just a thing that happened. You know, this thing, it was a corporate like synergy thing that, you know, all these elements came together from marketing and testing and whatever. And this guy is just taking credit for it for whatever reason to enrich himself. Like that's a bit of a downer for this, for me for this.
That's a great point. And in something I actually thought of when I was thinking about the movie yesterday as well, which is like, you know, what does Frito-Lay gain by denying this
right.
story? Like the narrative is perfect. And, you know, even if you just like go, yeah, sure. Whatever, you know, run with it. But they have very clearly, you know, there was a whole, I don't know if anyone out there has read it, but there is like an LA Times article that does basically call into dispute this story. And it happened, I believe, while the movie was either in production or had just finished production.
I know there was like a correspondence before, like when the movie was being shopped or whatever, or the script was being shopped, that it was a fabricated story or that it was in dispute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't know what the incentive for Frito-Lay would be to shoot this down if it wasn't a true story.
Well, especially because this movie sort of is like a commercial for Flamin Hot Cheetos at the end of the day.
Well, I mean, yeah. And it's you know, the there's a ton of like classic Frito-Lay logos in here. And there's a bunch of, I mean, it's a love letter to fucking Frito-Lay.
Yeah.
And that they would step back and say like, oh no, you know, this didn't happen this way. Like, well, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just be like, fine, whatever, who the fuck cares?
Yeah.
You know, I suspect that it maybe is the idea that Richard Montañez is enriching himself on this fabricated story, which, man, I don't know. I don't really care one way or the other. I just wish the movie cared a little bit more. Because it reminds me of Sully, the movie Sully. Do you remember how all of that shit was made up, like the adversity he faced? Yeah. Like none of that happened. And I remember very specifically telling my dad that. He was like, what? Why would they do that? Like, yeah, I know why. Because this guy's an American hero. He was an immediate American hero. And there's no way this would be a real way that this would be handled in a public forum. That this, you know, I don't know what the story of the creation of Flamin' Hot Cheetos is. If it's this Mexican janitor who created it in his kitchen using leftover shit, fuck, that's a great fucking story. Like, and if that were even remotely true, or if it were even like, if it were a little bit of a lie and it was okay, and, you know, it's still painted Frito-Lay in a positive light, fuck, run with it. But that it's not, and that it's disputed is a little bit of a black mark for the movie. Because it's not in a vacuum, because this is a real fucking product.
Yeah.
That is in existence and is, you know, pretty hugely popular. I don't know. It is kind of, again, aggressively fine. Like, I don't think there's anything that really blows me away. It is a lot of low hanging fruit, low hanging jokes. I mean, you know, if you're Hispanic, it's probably going to hit better for you than if you're, you know, I mean, this is a movie made by a Hispanic director, Eva Longoria, of course, starring an almost entirely Latino cast. You know, you've got Tony Shalhoub and Matt Walsh and Dennis Haysbert, I guess, are the three people that aren't Latino. You know, this is, you know, my Mexican wife loved it. Or had a good time with it. I don't know that she loved it. I don't want to put words in her mouth, but, you know, she laughed way more than I did. You know, so I get, you know, whatever. If it's not true, that's fine. I just wish the movie were a little more upfront about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, Cody, what's your grade for Flamin' Hot?
Yeah, I mean, I give it a B-. It's the most mildest of B- recommendations I think there is. You know, it again, you know, as we've said, it's low-hanging fruit. It's a little bit pandering at times, but I think it is effective in that sort of like rags to riches execution of the story. And whether or not it's true or not, I think the movie succeeds in presenting it that way. And if we're just going to hold it according to what the movie is on screen, I think it does work in that sense. So a B-.
Yeah, B-2 for me. I don't hold it to what's on screen only just because it, like I said, it is something that exists. Mm-hmm. It is something that you can buy. But it's fine enough. It's on Hulu and Disney Plus right now. It's a perfect streaming watch. Like it's not too involved. It's not too highbrow. It's not going to really make you think. It's going to give you a chuckle here and there. And I think it's a decent enough story. Anyway, that's going to do it for this week, Cody. Next week, we talked about it already, The Flash. And I believe also Elemental is opening.
That's right.
Or am I a week ahead? No, I can't believe they're opening those two things opposite one another.
Yeah, it is interesting, to say the least, especially too when you're following the weeks of like two massive and giant movies as well. Like, it'll be interesting to see what those numbers look like, and I have to imagine that they will compete with one another for eyeballs. I guess Elemental is I guess technically a younger skewing audience, but
no,
I don't know. I mean,
I've seen it. It's not. I mean, it's not a kid's movie,
right? But it's Pixar.
I mean, it is a Pixar movie, but it's not like you're not talking about Cars. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You're not talking about something that's made for toys. It's a bit baffling. Didn't they do this with Strange World also? Disney releasing it. I know it came out Thanksgiving, but it had like no press. I've seen very little press for Elemental as well.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it. I've seen it. I don't know that I can say anything about it yet, but I think the embargo's up. It didn't get a good reception. It played at Cannes and it didn't get a good reception there.
Yeah.
That may be all you need to know.
Yeah, and in the screening that they're doing here in San Antonio is the day before it opens, which is never a good sign. Well, I mean, technically it's on a Wednesday and it opens Thursday night or Thursday.
Sure. So. I mean, I saw it this past Tuesday, and Thursday, and it's, well, I told you, but we'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
Anyway, what else?
Oh, and then we have new A24 movie, Past Lives, that I, at the very least, will be talking about. Hopefully you can find a way to see it too, but
yeah, it's going to be a busy week if I can squeeze it in. I got like 3 screenings, so we'll see what happens. But
yeah, but it's Past Lives was a movie. It's like, it's funny because like there were, I think, 3 movies that played at Sundance that were not available online, and this was one of them. So I just saw it this past week at a press screening. Very excited to talk about it. Don't want to tip my cap, but I'm excited to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited to talk about Elemental, but for different reasons. So. If you want to reach us, you can email us at podcast@cinesnob.net. Find us on Twitter @cinesnob, Facebook CineSnob Critic Net, whatever it is. I never
You'll find it.
That. YouTube.com/cinesnob. We teased our bonus episode. We had to put that off a couple days. Mm-hmm. So hopefully you'll see that this week. Coming up, hopefully, if the timing works out all right. Anything else before we go, Cody?
No, I don't think so. We're smack dab in the middle of summer movie season now, so it's going to be a fun next few weeks and couple of months. Yeah, I mean, and with all these kind of retro sequels coming out, I'm not getting my chance to catch up on the movies that they're sequels to. Yeah. Like, I wanted to rewatch all the Indiana Jones movies. I don't think you need to, but I just wanted to get prepped for Dial of Destiny. And since I'm seeing that this week, I'm like, shit. Yeah. I'm not going to have time to crank through 4 Indiana Jones movies, but whatever. Anyway, all right. On that note, I'm Jerrod Kingery. I'm Cody Villafana.
Thank you for listening to the CineSnob Podcast. To read reviews, interviews, and more, visit cinesnob.net. See you next week.